Nintendo is known for creating some legendary video games, ones that define the childhoods of an entire generation and push the gaming industry into new heights. They have more successful franchises than I can count on my fingers, with some individual series having more games than that. They're also known for creating some of the weirdest sequels to their most pristine franchises, just to try something new and attempt to change the public's perspective on what it means to be a sequel. This trend started with the North American version of Super Mario Bros. 2, the successor to the 1985 classic and the first game I ever reviewed on this channel. Released in 1987, Super Mario Bros. 2 has always been one of the strangest mainline Mario titles to come out, taking only the base mechanics from the original and changing much of the core formula. It's a well-known piece of trivia, but this oddity of a video game was a result of a more proper sequel coming out in Japan that was thought to be too difficult for Western audiences. This resulted in our version of the sequel being ripped out of a random Japanese Famicom game. Will I ever play Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, the true sequel to the 1985 cult classic? God, I hope not. So that's why I'm here today to talk about this peculiar piece of Mario history. Let's begin. Something you'll immediately notice that's different from the original Super Mario Bros. Is the art style change. The sequel appears much less blocky in both the sprite designs and the tile maps. Mario and company are much more animated and look closer to what their modern day designs have evolved into. I honestly prefer this art style to the original, and would be curious to see other classic enemies translated into these visuals. There are only a handful of songs in this game, but the few that are here range from iconic to forgettable. I've always liked the Overworld theme for this game, and other themes including the character select and the credits are pretty good, but some tracks are either inferior remixes of songs from the first game, or just unremarkable. Overall nothing awful, but generally a mixed bag for me, not that I was expecting much from an NES game. Super Mario Bros. 2 made some pretty significant changes to gameplay compared to its predecessor. Firstly, this game allows you to choose a character for each level, with your options consisting of Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Peach. These four characters have different stats from each other in the form of speed, jump height, and strength. Mario is an all-around character, Luigi can jump the highest but has mediocre strength and speed, Toad is fast and strong but can't jump at all, and Peach sort of sucks at everything relative to the rest of the cast, but makes up for it with a short mid-air hover ability. On my first playthrough I alternated my character choices with each level, but on a second one I chose only Mario. He doesn't really have any big downsides compared to the rest of the group, so he was generally the least frustrating to use. Another big change made in this game is how you deal with enemies. Gone are the days of jumping on an enemy to kill them. Now you need to jump on top of them, pick them up, and throw them at another enemy to kill them. That last part is especially important, because if you just throw an enemy in front of you, it'll get right back up like nothing happened. In fact, this entire game has been built around picking up objects to carry and throw at various things. Different spots on the ground can be plucked to reveal turnips and other miscellaneous vegetables to throw at enemies. There are also other secrets to pull up, including a mysterious red potion that spawns a door to a mirror world. In this area, you are confined by the bounds of the screen depending on where you originally placed the door, meaning that sometimes you can place a door and find absolutely nothing, which is mildly annoying. But when there is something, it's usually a health pickup that increases your total HP for that level, or coins that can be used on a slot machine at the end of the level to gamble for 1-ups. By the way, I gotta talk about the slot machine minigame. I swear this game has to be rigged, because I'd get to it with 9 coins and pull 0 items out of it. I first thought while playing that the odds of getting a higher tier reward increased when you collected more cherries, but that just isn't the case at all. If you don't roll a cherry in the left column, unless you manage to match the other remaining columns with your first symbol, then you get 0 rewards out of this. Honestly, this is the kind of bullshit I'd expect from an NES game.
What the fuck you doing, man? Lost all the liquor money, boys.
Later I found a good timing to get 1-ups out of this minigame, but it must be pretty strict because I struggled to be consistent at it. Supporting this new gameplay centered around throwing enemies are a fresh suite of enemies themselves, many of which have become series regulars nowadays. These common guys include Bob-ombs, Ninjas, Pokies, Shy Guys, and Sniffits. Pretty interesting to realize that these enemies only exist today because of this weird Japanese game being localized. Levels typically end with a quick mini boss fight against the pink bastard herself, Birdo. Also, I must say, it's strangely progressive for Nintendo to create a transgender character for their game. I thought that was significant enough to point out. Birdo starts with a single attack where she shoots an egg that can be picked up and thrown back to her to deal damage, but later receives additional attacks involving fireballs and varying attack speed patterns. Even though the same mini-boss being copied for nearly every level in this game is quite repetitive, the evolution of more attacks remedies this issue a little bit, so I can't be too upset. These changes are also communicated through different colored Birdos, which is a common technique used in games for enemies of the same type with different strengths. Something else that I realized only after finishing the game is that there aren't any real power-ups in this. The original game had the Fire Flower, and future 2D games have traditionally introduced at least one new power-up each, but not Super Mario Bros. 2. There are still mushrooms and stars, but no Fire Flower or new additions. Instead, the game supplements these with different mechanics to twist the original formula. Some levels feature an enemy riding a magic carpet that you steal from them to move through the sky, others having bombs that must be thrown at breakable walls to create a path through a cave, or some with a key that you carry to a locked door. These locked doors in particular become more common as you progress further into the game, and are a great moment of stress for when you're being chased by the creepy mask enemy. These guys will follow you to the end of time. It's genuinely a bit disturbing and undoubtedly scared a few young children playing this game. One unchanged aspect in this sequel is the game structure. You'll once again move linearly through a set of worlds and levels, but now each world has a distinct theme and ends with a unique boss. However, worlds now only have 3 levels each, with the final world down to only 2 levels. World 1 is the typical grassy environment we all know and love. World 2 is the classic desert. World 3 is more cavernous with waterfalls. World 4 is the obligatory ice and snow world. World 5 appears to take place entirely at nighttime. World 6 is a desert again? With the same boss as World 2? Sure, I guess. And finally, World 7 is a sky world, one of my personal favorite level themes in these games. The main bosses of these worlds are all very similar, following the same philosophy of throwing objects at them while dodging projectiles. These objects might be bombs, mushrooms, vegetables, or rocks, and sometimes they're first thrown at you to use for a counterattack, or they're just lying around ready for battle. And in the case of the final boss, Wart, vegetables are shot out of cannons that throw at him while his mouth is open. Overall, the bosses are alright, definitely an improvement from fighting Bowser 8 times in the original, even despite the mechanical similarities. And at long last, it's now time for the section where I complain about an old game being unnecessarily difficult in some aspects. There aren't many items on this list of frustration this time, but I only care to talk about one in particular: inconsistent enemy patterns. If there is anything that killed me more than others, it would be the random movement and attacks of enemies. The number of times I've been damaged by an enemy sporadically jumping or switching directions is giving me nightmares. Especially in densely packed caves, trying to guess when an enemy is going to start moving differently feels hopeless. Maybe I'm just terrible at this game and there actually is a pattern for these guys, but by God I did not find one. This is another layer of classic NES era bullshit embedded in this game, but I am committed to reviewing the Mario games in release order, so I shall continue to suffer through it one more time in the future. As I've played more Super Mario Bros. 2, I began to realize just how influential this game has been on Nintendo's future projects. Selecting multiple characters, the variety of enemies, the world themes, picking up objects, this game is an essential part of the history of 2D platformers, and I'm glad I got to experience it for this video. Although I probably wouldn't play this game again, I might give the GBA version a chance at some point because there's still a lot featured here that I enjoyed. I just don't want to suffer through this NES nonsense any longer. Next time in the Mario review series, I'll be talking about Super Mario Bros. 3, which I'm definitely looking forward to. As for this video, thank you for watching. This is such an odd little game, but it was a fun time nonetheless that any self-proclaimed Mario fan should experience. Have a great day.